Hi, my name is Emma, and I live in a little town near Mount Rainier National Park in Washington. There are big trees, foggy trails, and lots of animals. I like going hiking with my dad on weekends, unless it's raining. Because when it rains, people say, the wet whistler comes out. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was just a story grown-ups told to make kids behave. But I was wrong. So very wrong. It happened last spring, when I was 5. Dad and I went hiking, even though the sky looked gray. Just a little drizzle, Dad said, smiling. We'll be back before the storm. We took the Nisqually Vista Trail, my favorite one. It twists through tall pine trees and smells like cold grass and fresh dirt. I had my purple raincoat, and Dad packed hot chocolate in a thermos. Everything was fun, until the drizzle turned into rain. Big cold raindrops fell from the trees. The wind began to howl. The woods got dark. The happy sounds of birds and squirrels disappeared. Then we heard it. A whistle. Not a bird. Not Dad. It was slow. Broken. Like someone forgot the tune halfway. Wee! Hoo! Wee! Whoa! I stopped walking. Did you hear that? I asked. Dad frowned. Just the wind. But I didn't think so. We kept walking, but the whistle followed us. Wee whoo! Wee whoa! Closer now. I squeezed Dad's hand. Let's go home. He nodded. Okay, sweetheart. Let's turn back. But when we turned, I saw him. A soaked old man standing between the trees. His clothes were dripping. His eyes were wide and empty, like puddles without bottoms. Water ran down his face, but he didn't blink. He just stood there and whistled. Wee whoo! Wee whoo! Dad didn't see him. I tugged on his coat. Dad, look! When Dad turned around, the man was gone. But the sound, the whistling, was behind us now. Dad picked me up and started walking fast. Really fast. But the whistling came with us. Wee whoo! Wee whoo! And then, I made a mistake. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I wanted to be brave. But I whistled back, just 2 notes, quiet, shaky. Wee! Woo! Dad stopped walking. Emma? And then the whistling answered, louder, closer, right behind us. We ran. Branches slapped our faces. My boots got stuck in the mud. I dropped my stuffed bunny, Mr. Wiggles, but we couldn't stop. The whistling never stopped. Wee whoo! Wee whoo! When we finally made it back to the car, Dad slammed the door shut. I locked it right away. He looked at me with scared eyes. What was that? He whispered. I didn't answer. I just stared out the window. Rain hit the glass, and far down the road, I saw him, standing, still, watching, the wet whistler. We drove away, fast, but I could still hear the tune in my ears. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the light on. I covered my ears. But then, I heard it again. Soft at first. Then louder. Wee woo, wee woo! Outside my window. I pulled the covers over my head. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. He was there. I knew it, because I had whistled back. Now, he follows me. No matter where I go, if it rains, I hear him. I saw him once in the school parking lot, standing in the fog. I heard him when we went to Grandma's and it started to drizzle. And one time, I swear I saw him in a puddle. Just his eyes, wide, empty, wet. Dad believes me now. He hangs bells near the door. He puts salt by the windows. He tells me, if you hear it again, don't whistle back. So I don't. I stay quiet, because now I know the truth. If you whistle back, he follows you forever. Hi, my name is Weston, and I live with my mom and dad in a little blue house in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Our house is near the woods, with tall trees and twisty paths. I like it here, except when it rains. Because when it rains, he comes. I didn't always believe the stories. Grown-ups whispered them at the diner, and kids at school said it was just to scare us. But I know it's real. I saw him. It started one rainy night last fall. The clouds were thick and dark, and the wind whooshed through the trees like a monster breathing. I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth and yawning. Mom tucked me in and kissed my forehead. "Sleep tight, Weston. Don't be scared of the storm." But I was scared. Not of the storm. I was scared of the man in the yellow raincoat. You see, every time it rains in our town, someone disappears. First it was Mr. Elmer from down the road. Then it was the mail lady. Then it was Lily, the girl who used to ride the bus with me. Nobody could ever find them. That night, I left my curtains open just a little. I wanted to prove he wasn't real. But I was wrong. Around midnight, I woke up to a sound. Not thunder. Not wind. It was a soft, slow squish. 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 Like wet boots stepping through mud. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. My room was dark, except for the little nightlight shaped like a bear. I turned slowly to look out my window. And that's when I saw him. He was standing right there, outside my window, tall, still, and wearing a big, dripping yellow raincoat. I couldn't see his face. His hood was pulled low, and rain poured down his shoulders like he was part of the storm. He didn't knock, he didn't move, he just stared, not blinking, not breathing. I couldn't scream, I couldn't even move. I just pulled the blanket over my head and shut my eyes tight. The next morning, I told Mom. But when we looked out the window, there were muddy footprints, right outside. And across the street, the police were knocking on our neighbor's door. Mr. Riley was gone. They searched the woods, the creek, even the old water tower, but they never found him. The rain stopped. The man was gone. Days passed, then weeks. People stopped talking about Mr. Riley, like they always did, like they were afraid. But I couldn't forget, because I knew the truth. The man in the yellow raincoat takes people. So I made a plan. I asked Mom for a flashlight. I put salt by the windows. Lily once said ghosts don't like salt. I even drew a picture of the man and taped it to my wall so I wouldn't forget his face. Then came another storm. Thunder crashed. Rain slammed the windows. I stayed up, holding my flashlight and my stuffed bear Button. I peeked through the curtains. At first, nothing. But then, he was back, standing, still, staring. I aimed the flashlight at him. I thought maybe the light would scare him. But when I turned it on, he moved. Not toward me. He turned and walked toward the woods. Squish, squish, squish. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat there, heart thumping, until morning came. That day, I begged Mom to take me to the library. I asked the librarian if there were stories about Hot Springs ghosts. She looked at me funny and said, "You mean the Storm Man?" Storm Man. That's what people used to call him. A long time ago, a man in a yellow coat vanished in the forest during a terrible flood. They say he comes back during storms, still looking for his house, but instead, he finds people and takes them. Nobody ever comes back. Now when it rains, I keep the curtains closed. I put salt on the windowsills. I whisper to Button, "Don't look outside. Don't look outside." But I still hear it sometimes. Squish, squish, squish. And I wonder who he's watching now, because he never stops. Hi, my name is Ava, and I'm 6 years old. When I get really sad or my brain feels too full, I like to go camping all by myself. Not at normal camps with bathrooms and snack bars. I mean the deep, quiet woods where there's nobody around. One day, after I got really sad because my best friend moved away, I decided to go camping. I packed up my little truck, got my sleeping bag, my snacks, and my teddy bear, and drove to a quiet place called Flathead River in Montana. It's super far from town, and there are lots of trees and no people. That's what I like. When I got close to the river, I saw something that made my tummy feel weird. There were already 2 trucks parked by the trail. One was gray and one was white. I didn't see anyone, but I just knew somebody was there. I almost turned around, but I told myself, the river's long. They're probably far away. So I started walking down the path. After a while, I saw 2 men standing by the water. They were fishing, They had big beards and big boots, but they weren't fishing very hard. When they saw me, one of them quickly covered something with his jacket. He looked at me and gave a weird, funny smile. He said, "We're just shooting cans, not trying to scare you." But I didn't feel better. I nodded and kept walking. Something about the way he said it made my heart beat faster. I walked more and found a quiet spot by the bend in the river. Trees were all around and no one could see me. I set up my tiny tent, pulled out a book, and started to relax. Then, it started to rain. Just a little. I put on my blue raincoat and listened to the river and raindrops. It felt peaceful. After dinner, I walked to the rocks by the water. That's when I saw him again. The man with the beard. He was across the river, staring at me. He waved. I waved back slowly. He yelled, "What's your name?" I don't know why I told him, but I said, "Ava." He didn't smile. He reached into his coat and pulled out something. At first, I thought it was a toy. But then he held it up and click. He took a picture of me. Then, he turned around and walked away. No words, just walked off. I was really creeped out. I went back to my tent and zipped it up tight. I hugged my teddy bear and tried to sleep, but my brain wouldn't stop thinking. Then, I heard something. Step, squish, step, squish. It was not the rain. It sounded like footsteps, walking on the wet ground, going around my tent. My tummy felt like it dropped right into my boots. I knew who it was. I grabbed my flashlight and my safety whistle. I unzipped the tent and stepped into the rain. And there he was. The man. The one from earlier. Hiding behind a tree. Watching me. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He just looked empty. Like his brain was turned off. And then, I saw it. He was holding a little axe in his hand. I wanted to run, but I stood very still. I held my whistle up and shouted, "Go away or I'll blow this!" He didn't blink. He said, "Ivan told me not to come." But I took care of Ivan. I didn't know what that meant, but it made my bones feel cold. I blew the whistle as loud as I could and said, "Drop the axe!" He just stood there. So I picked up a big stick near my tent and waved it. I shouted again, "Drop it now!" Finally, he did. I told him, "Take off your shoes." He looked confused, but he did it. I knew he couldn't follow me well without shoes. Then I told him to sit. I grabbed my bag, packed up what I could, and watched him like a hawk the whole time. Then I picked up his shoes and threw them into the woods. "Walk that way," I said, pointing away from my truck. And he did. I waited until I couldn't see him anymore. Then I ran. Through the rain, through the trees, all the way back to my truck. The woods were dark and scary, and I kept thinking, what if he comes back? When I reached my truck, I threw everything inside and drove away so fast. When I got close to town and my phone worked again, I called the police. I told them where it happened and what he looked like. That was months ago. I don't know what happened to him, but I still think about what he said. I took care of Ivan. I don't want to know what that means, but I do know one thing. I was really, really lucky that night. My name is Luna, and I live in Olympia, Washington, in a house that's a little too big for just me, Mommy, and Daddy. They always say, we meant to have more kids, but we got busy. So it's just me in the big quiet house near the forest park. I have some things that make me different. I get scared easily, I faint sometimes, and breathing can be hard. I also can't sleep unless it's really, really quiet. Even the soft sound of a fan or raindrops can keep me wide awake. One night, it rained really loud. The kind of rain that goes tap, 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 tap on the windows and roof like 1,000 tiny fingers. It was a Saturday in May, just before summer break, and I couldn't sleep no matter how many times I closed my eyes. I waited and waited and waited. Then I thought, maybe if I take a little walk, I'll get sleepy. Mommy and Daddy were sleeping upstairs. I put on my purple raincoat and tiptoed out the door. I didn't even bring my umbrella. I didn't bring my tablet or my flashlight, just me and the sound of the raindrops. There's a big park behind our neighborhood called Priest Point Park. It has bright lights on the trails, and Mommy always says, "It's safe here, Luna." Even the deer walk around like people. So I walked under the wet trees and let the rain splash on my face. It was kind of nice. I watched the trees bend in the wind, their branches making whoosh whoosh sounds, like giant monsters whispering. After a while, I got sleepy and turned around to go home. But that's when I saw it. Lying in the road, at the edge of the park trail, was something long and black. It didn't move. At first I thought it was a trash bag, but then I saw a shoe, then a leg. It was a person. He was face down in the street, not moving. The rain splashed over him, but he didn't care. He didn't even flinch. I felt something bad in my tummy. I wanted to go home, but Mommy always says, if someone needs help, we help them. So I walked a little closer. He was wearing black pants and a dark checkered shirt. His hair was wet and messy. Just as I was about to say, "Mister, are you okay?" I heard a screech behind me. I froze. It didn't sound like a person. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like both, like something was hurt and angry. I spun around fast, but the trees were empty. The sound came from deep in the forest. I turned back around, and the man was sitting up. He didn't lie there anymore. He was sitting straight up in the road. His face looked at me through the rain. He had the biggest smile I had ever seen. But it wasn't a nice smile. It was a crazy smile. And in his hand was a shiny silver thing. It was a knife. I couldn't breathe. My legs felt like jelly. The world got small. All I could hear were the raindrops in my own heartbeat. Then the man stood up. And he ran at me, fast. His knife was in the air, and he screamed, "I'll get you!" I screamed too and turned and ran into the woods. I didn't want him to follow me to my house, so I ran away from home, not toward it. I didn't even think. I just ran and ran and ran. My shoes slipped in the mud. My jacket was soaked. I could hear him behind me for a while, stomping and slipping, but I didn't turn around. I ran into the darkest, thickest part of the park and ducked behind a big tree. Then I waited. My heart went boom, boom, boom like it was going to break through my chest. I waited and waited. I didn't hear him anymore. The trees didn't move. The wind didn't whisper. It was just me and the rain. After what felt like forever, I peeked out. No one was there. The path behind me was empty. I walked the long way home through another trail that led to a different street, far from where the man had been. When I got home, I locked the door and crawled into my bed, still wet, still shaking. I never told Mommy or Daddy. I was too scared they wouldn't believe me, or worse, that the man might come back if I talked about him. I never saw him again. But sometimes, when it rains really loud, I hear that screech again. And I wonder, was that even a man at all? This happened a long time ago when I was really little. I think I was in first grade. I don't remember everything, but I remember this night because it was so scary. It was raining really hard in Cleveland, Ohio. I had just come home from school, and my mommy and daddy had to go to a fancy dinner. They told me they'd be home before bedtime. But the rain turned into a storm, a big, loud storm. And they called me on the house phone. "We're so sorry, Enzo," Mommy said. "It's too dangerous to drive. We have to stay at our friend's house tonight." I said I was okay. I told them I wasn't even hungry, and I'd be fine. Mommy gave me a list of things to do. Lock all the doors and windows. Close all the blinds. Leave a light on. Go to bed safe and cozy. I said, okay. I was kind of excited. I was all alone, and that meant I could eat candy and stay up late. I stayed downstairs in the living room watching cartoons. The thunder outside was so loud. It was like the clouds were roaring, but I wasn't scared. Not yet. I told myself I'd do all the stuff Mommy said right before bed. But guess what? I ate too much candy and got sleepy. I didn't even make it upstairs. I fell asleep right there on the couch. When I woke up, it was dark. The TV had turned off by itself, and the house felt cold. like really cold. I got up and rubbed my arms. Why was it so cold? I remembered Mommy's list and thought, oh no, I forgot. So I went around the house checking all the windows and doors. Everything was closed, everything was locked, but it still felt cold. I thought maybe the heater broke because of the storm. I didn't like that, but I was too sleepy to care. I tiptoed upstairs to my bedroom. That's when I noticed how loud the storm was now. My room has a big window, and the rain was slapping the glass. Boom! A huge thunderclap shook the walls. I jumped, but I wasn't scared of thunder. Not usually. I climbed into bed and tried to fall asleep. But then, creak! I heard a weird sound. Like something was moving. Like wood creaking. I sat up and looked around. My whole floor has carpet, so the sound couldn't be from the hallway. I told myself it was probably the wind, or a tree outside, but it didn't sound like that. Then, flash! Lightning lit up the room, and I saw everything. And that's when I saw it. The closet. The door was open a little bit. It had been closed before. I was sure of it. Someone, or something, had opened it. I froze. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then, ever so slowly, I got out of bed and tiptoed to the door. My legs felt like jelly. It took forever. I walked downstairs, quiet as a mouse, and crawled under the dining room table. And that's when I started crying. I was alone and scared, and I knew something was in the house. Then I heard it. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps, coming down the stairs. But they weren't normal footsteps. They were stompy, like someone was jumping. Or hopping. They were getting closer, closer, closer. Then I saw them. Just the feet, not the whole body. Bare feet, wet, muddy, yellowish skin, gross. They had cuts all over like they walked through thorns. I didn't know if it was a man or a lady. The legs looked all twisted and wrong. Then, they dropped something. Clank. It was a wrench. If they bent down to get it, they'd see me. I held my breath. My whole body was shaking. But the person didn't move. They just stood there, right in front of the table. I was so scared I thought I might scream. But I didn't. I couldn't. After what felt like forever, they finally turned and walked away. I heard them stumble around the kitchen, then the hallway, and then creak, slam. The front door opened and shut. They were gone. I stayed under the table for a long, long time. I don't even know how long. When I was finally brave enough, I picked up the wrench. I locked the front door. Then I went upstairs, crawled into bed, and went to sleep. The next morning, Mommy and Daddy came home. I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't want to get in trouble for not locking the door earlier. I kept the whole thing a secret for years. Now I know. I should have told someone right away. And now I always lock every door and window, every night, no matter what. Because sometimes, someone is out there. And sometimes, they get in.